Ayah. I'm a poet and multidisciplinary artist. I'm gonna share with you a poem that I wrote as a free write. I went to one of my friend's community jam sessions, and there were people going up playing different instruments or saying poetry or chanting certain things, and yeah, I was just writing as they were performing, and I kind of let the music take me. I'm gonna try and do it like with snapping my fingers just to get a beat. You can feel free to jump in if you want. I might change the pace of it at certain points. Hum, 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 your soul with that smooth saxophone. Let it take you far away. Wait for the percussion to come in so your soul comes in. Look in, you're calm and peace. Come back in words to your center, to being, to breathing. Today, when hate is hot, so hot, I take the hat off, a disguise, no longer hiding my identity, and I wrap my body with fabric laced tightly with love. You cannot break this love. They cannot break this love, and her love is strong. Our love is strong, and they are touring the UK to try thier this humanity, these humans existing with each other, but they're touring the UK with wings of sticky tar and fire. I said hate is hot, and my body will not respond. My identity will not respond. Iman Khalif just went to compete. Tougher than tiger, heart softer than a sofa. Her tears, a product of white supremacist jealousy, spewing poison. But to the haters touring the UK, did you know her tears are diamond? Her tears are diamond. Her womanhood is diamond. Houses of faith are diamond. My sexuality is diamond. My age is diamond. My race is diamond. My life, my breath is diamond. The tambourine in hand, I put the pen down, and freedom, freedom, freedom was yelled to the heavens, and I know they heard us, and I know they heard us. Thank you.
What inspired you to write some of that poem? Because it felt quite deep and quite personal in terms of some of the content. So was there other things that you were thinking about while you were listening to the music in that poem?
Yeah, I think because during that week there was the EDL hate marches going round, and I was also noticed that I was afraid while walking down in Soho, and I was very cautious of my surrounding. I could feel my PTSD kind of not being triggered fully, but I was aware that it was shifting, and I was kind of afraid, and I was trying to manage it. And when I went to the community jam, they were talking a lot about freedom. The word freedom was repeated multiple times, and I was also very, very upset with what happened with Imam Khalif, and just the state of the world. It just felt like everything was hot. Like I felt like hate was very hot, and I felt it. And it was a warm day as well. And yeah, I think I was just releasing everything, because I felt that everyone going up to the mic was releasing, whether that was through music or poetry or chanting.
Wonderful poem, very calming and soothing. I feel like when you was clicking your fingers, it was kind of like the heart and the metronome, but in a different pace, and it was going from a steady pace to an increasing pace based on like the gravitas of what you were speaking, and I felt like they complemented each other, and you've always had this underlying conviction about you that allows you to express how you truly feel, and yeah, it was nice to see that in the body language aspects as well, in the performative aspect. I just wanted to ask, basically, when you were saying that, you know, the components of your body or the components of what you were saying about yourself, the labels, when you said diamond, when you look at diamond, it's like you see the dimensions of a diamond. Or all those components, were they based on the dimensions of a diamond? Is that what you tend to say?
It's interesting to say that. No, I didn't think of it that way, actually. I just thought diamond as in something rare or something that's very precious, that no one can touch, no one can break, no one can have access to unless we do. And I like that, actually. Yeah.
Well, I don't have a specific question, but like you said, the interpretation to me, aside from the fact that your words and the message is deep, it kind of put me in a trance. The clicking, and also the shifting of the tone at the end, the kind of singing that you put in there. So that really made a huge difference. So thanks.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
When you first wrote it, you performed it at the event that you went to, or you just wrote it?
The previous community jam I shared about, this one I didn't. I was working up the courage, and by the time I did, they were kind of ready to wind down.
So what's the difference between the time it initially inspired you was inspired to write this poem, the time you first performed it, and you performing it now, emotionally? What was the comparison of your emotions from when you was feeling that anxiety initially, then when you got to get it off of your chest, how did you feel? And how do you feel about the poem today?
When I was writing it, I just felt like the music was guiding me, and I just let my mind run wild. Like I was just writing what I felt in the moment. I think I was translating what I was feeling, all the messiness inside. But yeah, because I kind of poured everything, I then felt that I had to work the courage to share it with everyone in the space. And by the time I felt ready, or felt cold that, okay, I can share it, they were starting to wind down, and then I thought maybe it's not meant to be shared just yet, and that's okay too. Now sharing it, I feel like I'm ready to share, and I'm ready to kind of, the anger or the mess inside has simmered down by pouring it into the page, and I feel like it's settled even on the page, and it's ready to be shared, if that makes sense. Thank you.
Although it's a free write, what made you engage with the whole hand-clicking element? What made you compel you to use your body language for this piece?
I wanted to take myself back to the beat that led the music, that led the poem, and the music that I was hearing, and it helps me kind of connect, and because I talk about like the saxophone and the tambourine and the chanting, so because I also wrote it to a beat, so I was like trying to create a beat, and I found it a bit just like distracting and calming for like being nervous when I'm sharing the poem as well.
Okay. Do you see yourself using such tools in the future?
Yeah, I'd like to explore that for sure. Yeah.
Hey, it was amazing to watch you do that. Do you want to talk about Imam Khalif, that story, for those that don't know, and why that inspired you to write the poem?
Yes, Imam Khalif is an Algerian boxer, and she was subjected to hate on social media whether that was by fellow athletes or by authors, a lot of known people who were trying to mislabel her identity, and they were trying to take away her power from her skillfulness and talent in being an amazing boxer, and trying to mislabel it and say, oh no, she only won because of this or that. So it just made me very upset at how, once again, the world tries to label people and tell them how they should be in their eyes, and that they can't just be amazing at something because they're simply amazing, that no, there must be a reason. And yeah, it just really, really annoyed me.
Do you think like your use of like diamond and like expressing like the kind of preciousness and scarcity of like the kind of people who we are or whatever, is that kind of delicate like nature, that description, is that kind of like your form of like protest in a way? Is that kind of what you're trying to integrate, to say like how like valued people are, but while using the kind of delicate, soft-natured kind of tone within your poetry? Is that kind of like a form and an act of protest in a way, like?
I suppose it is in a way, because yeah, I think with my poetry I try and reflect, I guess, on my preference. When people see me, I want them to see me as human first before any other label, and I want me to be the one to put a label if I do want to put a label, so for no one to have that power and put labels for me. It really bothers me how, yeah, labels bother me. I think we need to see each other as humans first before anything. So I do try and do that with my poetry.
That makes sense. That makes sense.
Do you feel, as the human poet, that there's an element and a narrative running through your poem about justice as well, and inequality? Like, it feels like there's a big, strong sense of inequality and justice that you're trying to get on the paper, but also to make people aware.
Yes, definitely. Yes, yeah. Majority of my poetry, even if it's talking about nature, I'll try and highlight about how Black people should have access to nature as well. So there will always be like a part of me that will have a message in the poem to send. I think as a Black woman, I can't just not talk about things that happen around me because it affects me. So yeah, I guess, and yeah, almost, yeah, pretty much all my poems have a little message.
It's like do you feel like the poetry is almost like a tool for you to be able to get out messages?
Yes, yeah. I do feel like each poem I write with intention, that I kind of know what message I'm trying to get out. I may not necessarily know what the theme of each poem is as I write it, but at the end I'll look and like, okay, this is the message that I was trying to get out. So it's almost like I do it subconsciously.
And I think I've heard you perform before, and I do think your poems do have an underlying tone of justice and like looking for like ways to kind of have an awareness for inequality and justice somewhere, which is beautiful because it means you're using your ability to help as well create awareness. So thank you.
Thank you.
Beautiful poem. I loved it. Yeah, on this theme, I just wanted to ask, how do you feel like your art is impacted by like difficult things are sort of going on in the world or like in your life? Because I think sometimes your art can either, like, for me, like as a poet, I feel like I can either have no words in those moments or all the words kind of come out then. Like, would you feel like happens with you in terms of like moments like that, and how your art kind of responds to that, if that makes sense?
It does make sense. I think sometimes I kind of take my own time to process things, and when I feel like I have something, I don't know how to explain it, but I can kind of feel that there's something in me that's being stirred or something wants to get out, and then I'll just write it down, and then it will most likely be about the events that are happening around me. It may not necessarily be immediately after. Like I have this poem about hair, which I just intended it for it to be a love poem for my hair, but I noticed while I was writing, I was taking it back to how growing up on television, I didn't see people who had my hair texture and things like that. So I think, yes, with the happenings around me, I know that it may take a while for the thoughts or words to form or the poem to form, but I know that it will come to the page when it's meant to come.
Having performed it now, and has been said, there are like chants and rhythms in it. Just from a point of view of sharing the poem, would you imagine actually getting people to say some of those lines with you? Like, you know, particularly where, I can't remember it word for word, but talking about the diamond or talking about, I don't know if there was a line something like, our love is strong or something is strong in it. Do you know what I mean? Because I could almost imagine there could be sections of it where you could actually get people, you could prep people from beforehand about these lines and then have a chorus of people saying a particular section. Is that something that you would think about, or can you imagine?
Yes, I would, yeah, because I've done it before with other poems, and usually be a line or a phrase that I think would be kind of, it could work as an affirmation for the audience, for themselves. And so I would ask them to join in. But sometimes I like also when people join in on their own, because it feels, for me, it means that, oh, maybe they need to say it for themselves or they're feeling it in that moment. But yeah, I think definitely if I share this more, I would, yeah.
Most definitely, it was absolutely fantastic. And not just because I'm biased. Fantastic.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Arnold. Arnaud Pepin Acarito, to be precise. I'm going to read a poem called Small Talk. So that's basically what the poem is. Okay. This ain't no small talk poem. This ain't no surface level poem. Nah, this is that over analytical poem. This is that sorry if I go over 4 minutes poem. Because I don't want to do small talk and conform to society. Like, tell me what you think about the global south and their policies. And if you tell me you were saying free twice and you posted a watermelon once, then I might tell you the truth about where I'm from. I hope the audience is still engaged. This poem's a bit long. Certain boys think they can do one chat-up line and use their thing that's long. I want to fall in love, stay in love, and fall in love. So no, this can't be some usual lovely romantic poem. This can't be some generic love story poem. This can't be some I'll learn all of your love languages poem. Like, tell me what excites you about the way poets use language. Like, tell me top 5 what stimulates your mind and soul. Because the love I believe in cuts deep into the soul. This ain't no quickie poem. I'm not even halfway through. I was talking to a friend about struggling to finish writing poems. I just want to make sure that with you it connects right, this poem. I want to go deeper than the words, than the ones I heard on Friday night. I was telling bro I was going to finish this on Friday night, but it had to be Sunday night. I hope that one day I can experience what he has. Seems authentic, looks real, so who wouldn't want what he has? Anyways, I can't do small talk, brief like things on that night. Like, let's develop the connection that pierces my heart. Like you're a fully trained, international renowned heart surgeon. There we go.
Just a quick statement. I usually like poems that are usually objects. The context of the poem, or like what is said, is object from the title itself. So when you say the poem is small talk, but it's not really small talk. It's almost like someone saying the poem's about fire, but you're talking about water. It's like, I like that sort of objection, and it's just like a clear, I wouldn't say F you, but it's like a clear, like, how can I say, not renegades, but like, people who go against the norm. What was that word? It gives them now. rebellious, yeah, like rebellious to like what is structure, what is like, yeah, I mean that's what the whole context of the poem was. It's just going rebelliously toward against like the norms of what poetry is and the norms of what conversations are all about. And I just like the fact that every single line is a statement and it picks on not just the things that's going on in the world, but it allows us to explore the depths of your mind and how you think. And yeah, that's what I like about it.
Thank you.
In your poem, at a certain point, you said, "I might tell you where I'm from." If I'm not
I
mistaken.
might tell you the truth about where I'm from.
Yeah, that's it. And we just met, and you told me where you're from.
Yeah.
And I'm just curious, because it's an unusual mix,
Yeah.
a very interesting mix,
Yeah.
Congolese Rwandese.
Yeah.
And I'm just curious to know, did that upbringing in those two different communities have an impact on what you've become? Because you seem like a stand-up guy.
I mean, I guess it did, because it's kind of like the English phrase, isn't it? Like Jekyll and Hyde kind of thing. So you have maybe one side which is a bit more like upbeat, another side that's a bit more like downbeat, a bit more
Discreet,
a
reserved.
bit more mellow. I would say that's mainly my Rwandese side, to be fair. But yeah, like I feel like both of those two sides of me kind of morphed to kind of well-rounded, like interpretation of not only the world but like how to treat people and what maybe my values and things might stand for, and just in terms of like truth as well, like just in terms of standing up for what's real in the world and kind of acting with love first instead of hate and prejudice and things that we see in the world. Because obviously when you're from two countries where I'm from, they're literally like the best of enemies. So it's one of those things where you just want to be a middle ground and spread love all across the world. Because yeah, they need more of it. As cringy as it sounds, like we actually need more of like real, genuine love that exists in this world, not just like what's on social media and stuff. Like,
Respect, man.
I really loved that poem because, and I felt there was an element of your vulnerability coming through, and in terms of how you want to see and feel love.
Yeah.
And distribute it as well, which was really lovely.
Yeah, there kind of was. Yeah, I feel like sometimes it takes a while to get to that stage of vulnerability, and I think that's been molded by experiences, molded by observations as well. So I feel like in this poetry, it was a chance for me to tap into that side more, and obviously because sometimes that side is not always publicized when you're a man, when you're black, when you're African, when you're Congolese, even to go to that level, like that kind of vulnerable side is not always appreciated or like expressed. So I feel like in order for us to progress in the sense that, you know, the more vulnerable we are, the more honest we are, and then I feel like we can foster better connections. So
I think it was beautiful and very authentic.
thank you. Appreciate it.
I love how conversational it felt. It felt, really personal between the poet and the audience. I just wanted to ask if there was anything like in particular that inspired you to write this poem.
I think what actually the main inspiration behind this poem was kind of like observing, coming to London and observing people, like couples and like people who are looking like they're going to get married, people who are looking like they're going to like take that next step, move into their property, and kind of just items and brief like glances like that. So it was inspired by that, but as well it was inspired by things that are happening in the world, like seeing someone post a watermelon every single day, seeing someone talk about where I'm from every single day because the UK is just doing deals or whatever. Like it's inspired by that whole just element, but obviously for me I felt like putting it through poetry was the best thing, because yeah, I feel like the love the love that I see in the world is kind of something that people are almost conditioned to overlook. Like they're conditioned to overlook that by the media, by everything, by things that go on. So I felt like it was inspired by people, poets, like people that I go and see at open mic nights. These random couples that you bump into on open mic nights, or these random, I don't know, these random people that you see in a dance or something, and they're having the time of their life, or something like that. It can just be mundane things like that are acts of love that should actually be valued a bit more by society, in my view. So yeah, inspired by humans.
Love that poem. This is the house that you grew up in, isn't it? So
Yes,
how
yes.
does being here, performing in this setting, amplify the emotions when performing your poetry?
That's a good question. It definitely gives it a different, deeper meaning. Obviously, because you know this is the house I grew up in. My mum and dad, they literally moved into here. They got married 3 years later, and yeah, it feels nice to bring a sense of love into a house where there was love, where there was community, love, sacrifice. Every single word you can think of the book, there was here. So yeah, on a personal note, it feels very, very, very emotional in a sense, but also it feels gratifying and satisfying, because I feel like I'm honouring I'm not honouring, because sometimes my mum doesn't like creative things and whatever, but I'm trying to do justice to the community and the family I grew up with, especially with my dad passing away 4 years ago and everything. So like reconnecting with everybody and just, you know, being here feels nice, and it feels like a continuation of what could have been had we had stayed in London and not, you know, moved out like a lot of families did in the early 2000s, where they moved out of London to, you know, to other parts of the country for more stability and things like that. So yeah, emotional, definitely, but you know, we move, as they say, we move.
The poem's really beautiful. It almost feels like you were talking to yourself at times, like it was a diary, and at times it felt like you were talking to the world or another audience. When you were writing it, did you know that it was a poem? Like you were going to write a poem about it, about small talk, or was it kind of you're just thinking out loud?
Maybe it was half and half. To be perfectly honest with you, it started off as me attempting to write a poem and attempting to write things, but of course the more I went into poem, the more kind of diary entry-ish it got, and the more I tapped into kind of that side, because when I was a kid I used to write diary entries and use that as my form of therapy in a sense before I started writing poetry. So I feel like the poem itself was designed to be a kind of a poem to, you know, spread love outwards, but it developed into a kind of inward, self-loving, kind of like trying to respect what I stand for kind of poem. So obviously, I mean, half and half, let's say, even 60-40. I'm not sure which side, but you can pick for yourself. Like.
So I wanted to say that I thought it was really cool how your poem, like, you were kind of trying to cut through like societal norms through what you're saying. Like you don't want what everyone's kind of in, but at the same time you were using the jargon of like normal society stuff of like the watermelon posting, and like you were kind of like using the language to relate to people, but saying like, let's pull out of this and create something real, or at least that's what you were saying that you wanted. And I was going to ask you, like, do you think poetry is a way where you can like kind of step away from the kind of like societal stuff and go into the more real love and express that? And if so, then is that like one of your main ways you feel like you can do that, or do you have like other ideas of ways you can be more real and do less small talk and kind of bring that to the world? If that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I feel like poetry in itself, the format of poetry allows people to be more real. That's a given. That's a standard foundation. I feel like you can see that throughout time. Like even now, you can go from now with current poets and poets in 1800 or 1700. So it allows them to be more real and to do that. And obviously, that's a target of mine. But while you're still trying to make it relatable, still trying to talk to people in the language they speak, because I kind of feel like it's important to talk to people in the language they speak, like to kind of connect with them, but also to make sure that a message of ultimate love, like, and not always conforming to society, like, cuts through. Because I believe poetry, I believe, has reframed society in certain elements of history, certain parts, whether it's you listen to the musical form of it, whether you listen to the traditional form of it, whatever. So the fact that it has reframed parts of society already shows its potential to continue reframing, to continue reshaping parts of society, characters within society, elements within society, whatever types of structure. So with me, it's my thing where I'm seeing society, you know, portrayed in a certain way. Now it's time to, you know, through the support of everybody, through doing poetry, it's time to like reshape that and kind of reframe that so that people can be more connected to one another. Like poetry is like had the possibility and the kind of ability to do that anyway. It's like water is wet, isn't it? Like poetry can just connect with like people on a one-to-one level. So I just aim to do that via my poetry. And then obviously there are other ways. You can be an artist, you can make, you know, real life sculptures, you can make so many different types of fine art, kind of paintings and whatever that tell a story that can make us imprint in society. So there's so many, for me, there's so many different ways. I just mainly choose poetry. So yeah.
I was going to say something completely different, but because of what you just talked about poetry and being able to reframe, it reminded me of a quote that I like about poetry. So I just wanted to share that with you guys, if that's okay. So it's from Ted Hughes. I can't remember the year, but it was from a speech. Our speech was made in 1967. And it says, however rootedly national it may be, poetry is less and less the prisoner of its own language. It is beginning to represent as an ambassador something far greater than itself. Or perhaps it is only now being heard for what, among other things, it is, a universal language of understanding, coherent behind the many languages in which we can all hope to meet. And I really love that idea of poetry being universal, because I think it is a language in itself that we can all meet in. Even people who don't necessarily understand certain forms of poetry, it's such a wide-scale thing. And as you say, either using the language of the day or whatever. But I think that ties in with our responsibility as poets, that knowing that this is a language in which many people of many descriptions can meet, how we use our words and how we share our words, whether that's in a setting like this, whether it's just with your friend in the office or whether it's on big stages, you know what I mean? But yeah, I just thought that's a really cool quote, and so I just wanted to share that.
Very profound.
as I was saying with like, you know, the writing style of like giving statements, and Ayah was saying like in the sort of journaling aspect of your writing, and from what I've heard like of your pieces in the past and what I hear right now, I feel like this is a very present basis poem. Like when you was writing it, was writing in a very present state of mind. Do you feel like generally when you tend to write about things, do you see the world as it is, or do you see it as it could be? Because I feel like, especially as you was reading out this piece, like in the beginning, you were saying "don't you," or it's like "let's," you know, it's kind of like you're negotiating through the course of the small talk to someone to refrain their mind to the way you think. So would you say like you see the world in the sense of your poetry as it is, or would you say you see it as it could be?
I would say I see the world as it is with a view to what it could be. So in the sense that whatever I see can initiate imagery or something that a thought of what the world can be, because it feels very, the two could be interlinked. Like when I wrote this poem, it was coming back from an open mic night just up the road in Euston over there, and I was seeing love, I was seeing, you know, adoration between people, I was seeing, you know, couples and friends and stuff, but it made me think on the way home a potential future world of that. Like it taps into the futuristic, ambitious kind of side of me of what it could be. So I'll say for me the two are interlinked. Personally. So
You said poetry is like water, and it's wet, it's connectable, it's easy to connect to other people.
yeah.
Yeah? What do you think the reason is that it's so easy to connect on a level when you could say almost anything in a poem and people can identify with it, but you couldn't just say it? You can't just have a straight conversation with someone and say, I'm feeling low, or I'm feeling down, or I'm feeling like the world is full of shit and I want more love and stuff like that. Why can't we say things normally? Why do you think we can't say things normally opposed to it being received differently when it's in a poetic form?
Yeah, I think maybe the poetic form, I feel like maybe the poetic form has strong therapeutic elements within it. So when we're in a conversation, maybe because of the norms and the way we've been conditioned, we don't have those type of sincere, human natured kind of therapeutic, I'm trying to help you, I'm trying to connect with you, and vice versa type of thing. So fortunately poetry, through the tonation of it, through the use of words and the kind of relationship that the words can have in a poem, and the way a listener can receive it, it's often, I felt like, acted therapeutic for me when I've heard poetry, and when I performed poetry, I've often seen people who have benefited from it, who have said, "Oh, could you please continue doing that, because I like that." And I feel like that type of response, it can't be elicited. It can't be elicited in a conversation normally. Nowadays, I feel like there's too much norms. There's too much things which require, you know, people to just be blocked from having real, genuine connection. So poetry, like I keep saying, poetry at its foundation has the ability to connect with everybody. So yeah.
I think because you mentioned water, I'll share one about water.
Okay, we move. It makes sense.
I think water is just so interesting, honestly. Like, I find it interesting how it can be calming. I feel like it has power over us as humans, and despite, you know, the tall buildings we have and the dams and borders we built, there are some things like in nature that we can't control. And it's very easy for the elements in nature to turn against us, and in a flick of a second, we become the vulnerable ones. And yeah, so waters. I wrote this poem in Ramsgate Beach.
Nice place.
It was.
Yeah.
It's a nice place.
Shout out. Kent.
And the tide was very high. It was raging, and I was a bit scared, so I felt vulnerable, and I was just looking at kind of the pier and the borders, and actually I don't know if there's a pier there, but you get what I mean. And I was just thinking, if that wasn't there, how easy it'd be for flooding to happen. And it's very easy to become the vulnerable ones, to lose control. And then I was just watching this raging tide, and I suddenly kind of reflect. I was also thinking about the bills, like the Rwanda bill and this Bibli Stockholm, I think it's called, and just the laws and the borders that people try to place from humans being able to access safety. And I was wondering how it must feel for someone to be in these waters while they're raging, completely unsafe, yet the circumstances of life give them no option but to explore these raging waves. And I was reflecting on myself being comfortable in this beach, and I'm accessing the water and the beach for leisure or for comfort, and how people may be accessing it for another reason. And so I wrote this poem. It's like a free write. Hydrated knees kneading soft sand. In silence we watch waves raging as tides tango with gust. Waters beckoning the shore with sea foam again and again. As each rush retreats, I feel the wave pulling at my thoughts. Sweet soul, struggling, but breathing, but marginalized, but existing, but marginalized, but fortunate, but marginalized, but fortunate, is this poisoned privilege. There, beyond what retinas register, at this very moment, human beings brimming unsafe boats with life jackets unguaranteed, wage these waters holding on to speck of hope. Reach land and trust in humanity of high powers. They pray for no one, praying for themselves, praying to Allah, praying to Jesus, praying to Yahweh, praying to Jah, praying to stars, praying to cosmos, praying to gods, praying to all forms of their higher power, pleading their parched knees to knead this shore in safety. Amin, Amen, Tathatsu, Kinyaratsun, I believe, yes, this is now home.
What I love about that poem is that water's such a funny theme, or not funny, it's an interesting theme because it is biblical ties to water, but also in this present-day climate, water in terms of boats, and it's almost a political thing where, like, oh, stop the boats, they're coming. And also just, recently, like, we're going to send people to Rwanda and stuff like that. So the idea of boats, water has always been throughout history a dark and also a light chapter. Like people going to America seeking a new life, people being taken from the continent of Africa. So I like that in the tradition of the poem, revisiting this theme of just water being a salvation for some people, also being a dark grave for people. So I just kind of love the theme that you visited here. How did you feel about writing a poem about this subject?
I think because I didn't have the experience of taking a boat to seek safety, so I almost felt kind of guilty, or I don't know what the word I'm looking for is, almost like I didn't have a right to talk about it. And I felt, when I was saying like hydrated knees, I was reflecting on how my knees are moisturized and how the sand is cushioning my knee, and yet some people are you know, knees are dry or parched, and they're seeking that cushioning for their knees. So yeah, I think that's where my thought was. I was feeling, like almost a bit privileged, I guess. I don't know if that's the right word,
Kind of like
but
a survivor's guilt.
Yeah.
That's actually, I can see where that was going. There's a lot of like images about, there's lots of images about, you know, salvation, praying to like, you know, nature, to the cosmos. So that's kind of, I was just envisioning people just, you know, putting their hopes and dreams in this one voyage. So it's kind of heartbreaking as well.
Actually, when Mercer said the thing about praying, I was going to comment on that. The line where you say they're praying to no one, I felt that like really in my body when you said that. Like it was really powerful. Like I felt like there was a deep truth in that, in what you said. And I really like how you relate things to the body. Like I find that really interesting because you make them you take like deep spiritual concepts and you bring them here. And you bring the knees into it, or the sand, or like something we can see and feel, and it's here, and I really like that as well.
Thank you.
And my question is, do you feel like when you're with the sea, or like with nature of any sort, well in this context you were with the sea, like do you feel like it holds a space for you to be able to explore these thoughts in a way that maybe when you're in like society, like I don't know, like more like London and like groups and communities, like that space isn't there as much? Like do you feel like nature holds like a different kind of space for you to explore these feelings?
Definitely. I feel like in nature there's no one telling me that I don't belong here, or like borders, boundaries, labeling, things like that. I feel like I can be myself fully and freely. Definitely.
Beautiful poem. Second time that I've heard it, it's just beautiful. Something that's come up, I think, in each of your poems this evening, there's always a line that the use of repetition, you know. And so, like, for example, in Anna's last poem, there was a like that, like that, like that. And now I'm forgetting exactly what kind of lines, but it was like in yours, that use of repetition beforehand to kind of just bring people's mind, both to emphasize something, but also I think just letting us know something's coming, because you're repeating something. It's really drilling it down into our minds, but also, making us aware that something's coming after that. There's something important that we have to listen to. So is it a conscious use of repetition that you're doing, or is it just the way that you write? You know, like some people, they love metaphors, or people like alliteration. I love alliteration. So they kind of naturally turn up often in some of the poetry I write. Is repetition for you, because it's come up in both of the poems that you shared, something that you consciously use in your poems?
Sometimes it's consciously, like you said, when I know I have a important, like the core message of the poem's coming, or the line, then I'll have repetitions before it. But in this poem, when I was saying, sweet soul struggling but breathing, but marginalized but existing, but marginalized but fortunate, but marginalized but fortunate, as this poison privilege, I was mimicking the waves. So they were coming, saying you're marginalized, oh, but you're existing, but you're marginalized, oh, but you're fortunate, but you're marginalized. So it was like that. So that pull of the waves. So I when I said I could feel the waves pulling at my thoughts. So what I said about feeling, survivor's guilt or privilege. So, but it's poison privilege, because I'm still marginalized even if I am existing.
do you feel like the sense of like people like us who are here, who have either been born here or like got here in a certain way, do you feel like when you encounter other people, do you feel like that privilege kind of heightened, and was that like an element that you deliberately wanted to express in your poem? Or like, cause obviously when people come here, they can come by various routes from various different types of situations, but obviously because maybe some of us have more financial like needs, or financial kind of just finances in general to get to a safer country, do you feel like that privilege is kind of heightened when you experience or see other things like within your poetry? For example, you're saying it's kind of poisoned. Do you feel that kind of heightened like around other people, or just do you feel like you're in the same situation almost? Like,
I think for me, it is heightened, particularly in, I think it was 2019 when Sudan was going through a revolution, and there was the kind of, I guess, a discourse on social media between Sudani diaspora can't speak for Sudanis in Sudan because you guys aren't suffering like us. You know, you're living comfortably. Yes, you're protesting, but you're not getting shot live bullets, or I think it's called, what's it called? Smoke grenade, or I don't know what it's called. But so there was always that guilt, I suppose. Equally, I also wanted to recognize that, yes, I do have some good things in my life, and I think we should acknowledge that we are privileged in certain areas. I don't think because the word privilege is, I feel like nowadays when you say I'm privileged, it's almost like you're insensitive to your surroundings. But I think we can acknowledge our privileges and be empathetic to people who don't have those privileges at the moment. So I think in my poem I was kind of battling between calling it poisoned privilege, I guess, because I acknowledge that I am privileged, but it's, don't know how to put it in words. It's kind of like tainted.
Tainted, yeah, right. That is the correct word for it, yeah.
Can I add something if no one? Sure. Something just came back to me when just that last bit of dialogue about the privilege and, you know, people coming here different ways. There's a concept in Christianity, it probably is in other faiths as well, of the righteous rich. And that idea of, because sometimes we can think of any rich people, you know what I mean, are bad, for example, or whatever. But that sense of the righteous rich, what are you doing with the wealth? That actually the wealth that you've been given, you've been allowed to be in certain places, because we need people to be in every sphere of good society, right? And it's like, but what are you doing with the position that you have? Which doesn't mean that you have to give everything away. And I think that sometimes maybe somewhere within the conversation of feeling the privilege or the poison privilege, I think we can be made to feel, we make ourselves feel certain ways, but in the same way that true leaders, again, a concept in a few faiths about servant leadership, it's okay to be in a position where you have power and authority, but what are you doing with that power and authority? How are you using the fact that for whatever reason you have been able to be at this table? How are you using that in a way? And like, you know, something that people in this room, I'm sure, are doing with their poetry and other things is using the positions, the spaces that they're in to do that. So I guess it's come back to my mind, and maybe it's also an encouragement to us. And the fact is that as people who have got beautiful melanin with us, our privilege is not without cost and it's not without pain, right? Do you know what I mean? But, you know, it's just that sense of, yeah, we can use whatever position we're in a positive way, which this tonight is a positive thing. So, yeah, I just wanted to throw that out there.
Basically, this poem is called It's called Twitter Convo with a Palestinian. It's one that I decided to write and release because I wanted to do it, and I felt like nobody these days can stop me from kind of talking about stuff that people try and stop you from talking about. So yeah, I'm gonna perform it, and it's kind of like dedicated to my great grandpa and like people who like passed away like in the last year or so. So yeah, okay, here it goes. It was like 3 years ago, if my memory serves me right. I think she was in despair over the oppressor's sight. I think they shot another kid. Obviously they denied what they did. She was sad, exasperated, heartbroken, because they wanted Palestinian spirit to be broken. I could see it through the words written within that 140 character limit. The tweet was loaded with the helplessness of the effects of what the Israeli police do when their guns are loaded, with the trauma of seeing her ends come to an end. I typed out that response and pressed send. I told her I love her because I do, because I felt her pain and I still do. She might not have realised I'm Rwandese. She might not have realised that I lost like 50% of my family in the 90s. But she sent solidarity right back to me. The first person online or in the creative world to show solidarity with my family. We were there talking about hope and a better future. That was before the IDF dropped their bombs and missiles in Gaza, before M23 dropped bombs and bullets all over Goma, before the UK stripped funding from UNRWA, before the UK overlooked innocent prisoners to sign a £500 million deal with Rwanda. That convo ended with her saying, Amen. 3 years later, the only weapon we've got is our prayers. Because she was talking about survivor's guilt, and that's something we both feel. I was born in 98, but imagine if I was born in 93, would the RPF have killed me? If I was born in 1990, would I have survived the civil war before the madness happened? I'm writing this poem on the 15th of May. I sympathise with her on a day like today. Because some of us got pushed into Congo, could never return because we'd probably be killed. So they got left with no choice but to keep going west. Am I wrong for blaming countries in the West? I can't imagine all this stuff times 50 going through her head. She must struggle to sleep comfortably in her bed. Just woken up by the pictures of her people in makeshift tents. It was 3 years ago, but it's a shame. It's a shame those tweets have aged so well. Because what's worse than being a Palestinian woman? So the love and solidarity is natural. I can't be a hypocrite, I'm Rwandan. So this poem ends on that note. The freedom has to be fought for. I'm not naive to the power of the Western powers, but a better future requires us to keep up the hope.
Yeah, punchlines. Actually loved, because I think I remember seeing the post visually. Like I never knew who you was initially having a conversation with, but until I saw it was. I feel like there's a lot of power in knowing that there's a mystery, that you sympathize with someone that we don't necessarily know about, but you're sympathizing with not just one person. You're sympathizing with a whole culture. You're sympathizing with a whole generation. You're sympathizing with a whole like nation that's almost being shredded away in history. And I think what I love is that it's like you quoted off. I think her name is Tasmin.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, no,
Tasmin,
I didn't even want to give out the name like that. But when you said, when you quoted her and saying like the greatest weapon that we have is prayer, that was really powerful. That was like, yeah, that had some potency to it just by the lyricism alone. And I like the part where you said, I can't be hypocritical, I'm Rwandan. That was Yeah, that got me chuckling. I can't lie. So yeah, I just loved, like, again, the initial part, as I said before, the statement aspect of the way you speak, and yeah, I love that.
Thank you very much.
I had chills when you were actually performing that, and I think the reason why is that it's still something that brings tears to my eyes, and it's not going to stop. And I think it's not just the plight of one area that you spoke about, it's many different layers of different people. You know, I think prayer is a beautiful thing, and we become united when we pray. I did see the post that related to the young person that you spoke to, and that also invoked a lot of emotion, and it's a beautiful journey that you've taken, so thank you for bringing that for all of us to be able to actually appreciate and create an awareness. It's important for us to be able to know that there are people reaching out in different ways, so I really appreciate you for doing that. When you wrote that, did you feel in some way, shape or form that you had a duty in honouring her?
Yeah, it almost felt mandatory in a way. It almost felt mandatory because, yeah, I felt like I had to honour what she said in those tweets back in 2021 or whatever, and I had to stand up for people who are going through what my people experienced 3 decades ago. Seeing the pain of a woman with her children, or she doesn't have any children anymore, they're dead or whatever, it kind of evoked a sense of duty to kind of stand up for those people, especially now. And I figured out when I wrote it, especially at that time, because it felt like it was seeping away from MSM, mainstream media, and just becoming within our echo chambers of social media. So I felt like, you know, because these people are in pain. So
I'm gonna. This is a free write that I wrote. I had a brief crush on someone. It was a very brief moment, but then from that I just.
That was TT. She's talking about.
Did you go past the small talk?
No, it was very, very brief. I kind of like, I think I liked them for like 2 nights only, and then I was like, actually, nah.
You got over them after 2
Yeah, so it was literally a very brief crush. But then I thought, what if I did want to approach someone? How would, because knowing myself, how would I do that through poetry? Because poetry is where I feel comfortable. So the rhythm of it is inspired by Alicia Keys. She has a song called You Don't Know My Name. And you know there's the bit where she calls up the guy.
Yeah, that's my favorite part.
Like, I know you always order the special, the hot chocolate.
I look different outside of work though.
Yeah. So I really like that back and forth that she does with having the conversation, going back to singing. So yeah, this is the point. Sorry. It's true. We have power of words, that I can say I am, that a medley of spaces can be formed, that we may meet out in the open, watching the placement of our hands. I said, hey, I'm already here, and my body is in stillness. Feelings are still valid whether they fly out or stay in. So forget Aristotle, I can be both, neither, either, or all. So I will rely on my humor and hope for your smile. And if my laughter brushes the borders of flirt, I can ask my nerves to back down, be a messenger and carry this moment for the books up there. Your laughter paints the room, and this poetry too. The way they look at the sky as their lungs gather all the joy inside. The way her back straightens to gaze at the audience deep with intent. the way his retinas acknowledge every soul present in this room. Oh yes, my poetry can paint love too. But I'm too awkward to perform. Scared of this feeling, vulnerable, exposed. But you're already here, just being yourself, never one to conform. This is what about you. Hey, I said I'm already here and I have finished the poem. I am about to sit back down among this audience, so let me know if your neural paths decipher this attempt to approach. I don't know. This is my poetry. Collaborate with me if you'd like to talk.
Name?
The fact that he can invoke that in
Yeah, I was actually going to say, like, I think this is the first time I've heard a love poem from you, or something verging on that, because I always hear, like, you know, social justice poems from you, or self-love poems from you. So this is actually quite refreshing. But yeah, like, when you write something like this, do you feel like you're coming out of your comfort zone, or does this still feel kind of natural because it's through the medium of poetry?
I think when I wrote this, I didn't imagine sharing it, so I was comfortable in that sense when I was writing it. But
we feel very honored. Yeah.
I shared it once at a poetry workshop, and I was very, very nervous because I write it in a coded way, so I'm not sure if anyone really knows what it's about. But I was very nervous because I was sharing it, and it was interesting because I think the audience assumed that I was nervous because I was just nervous about the performance bit, not about the content of it being a love poem and things like that. So yeah, I feel reassured, I guess, because I'm doing it through poetry, and that's where my comfort is. But it's also meaning that I'm, like being vulnerable, exposed, kind of thing.
Yeah, definitely keep writing some more. I'd like to hear more types of poetry like that.
I've got one about basketball that's a love poem, so I do have another love poem.
For you, when you had this crush, was it like an instant thing of like you had words that kind of came to mind to you and you kind of flowed with a poem, or did you sit down and want to kind of like reflect on the emotions or feelings that you had in that short period of time?
I think there was they were a poet. Anyway, there was a bit where they were performing and they were saying, "Oh, I'm really awkward when I perform." And I was just looking at them and I was like, "You're in your element." Like I found it funny that like it that's why I'm saying like it was very brief crush, because I think it was just more admiration of how they thought they were being awkward or nervous, but for me they seemed like they were totally in their element. I forgot your question now. Sorry.
So I don't know, everybody is so different, but for like me, sometimes I can like feel something quite passionately and instantly I'm kind of it kind of leads me to write in a poem, or like thinking of some bars and then I'm like, oh, let me turn it into a proper poem.
Okay.
Or was it like a sit down and intentional write of the experience of having like a short crush?
I get what you mean. I think just that bit where they said they're too awkward to perform, and then I thought of you're already in your element. I knew I wanted to write that, and I was like, oh, actually. So yeah, I guess I did sit with that afterwards.
Yeah.
And yeah, I guess I did sit with it, and then because I imagined then, well, if I was to approach someone and I like them, how would that look if it was through a poem? The hesitancy, the nervousness, and yeah. So
I enjoyed it. You did
good. As someone that writes love poetry, I find it's either the most indirect way to be direct, or it's the most direct way to be indirect with someone. So when you wrote this, like, were you trying to get them to see it like through Instagram or just like hoping that they'd be in the crowd when you read it, and that way you could like tell them without really telling them like.
Man basically said, "Were you shooting your shot?"
like, cause I would do that. I would write a poem about someone, then I would read it in a crowd, or they'd be listening somehow. And in that way, I was like telling them without telling them, if that makes sense. So I was just wondering if that was the same for you.
I had no intention of sharing it when I wrote it. That was more like a bit like a diary entry, I guess. But I did think about it. I was like, if I share it, are they gonna know? But then because it's not all about them, it's literally just the line of them saying they're awkward when they perform. So I guess because the poem isn't. It was inspired by that brief crush, but it's not about them, if that makes sense. So I think I'd be okay if they were there, because, yeah, it's about love.
What is it about love poems that, you kind of hesitate on, like, what makes it feel more difficult to kind of share?
I think because... Though I wrote this like assuming I would be the one approaching, so there's that hesitancy of, what if they reject me? What if they're not feeling, I don't know, a vibe or something? So, I think that's where the hesitancy is. Did I answer your question? Yeah, because.
What if they hear it and reject you? Is that what you mean?
Yeah, if I was to take this poem to someone that I liked and then they rejected me, and there'd be that hesitancy. Whereas with like when I write about justice and things like that, I'm just stating the facts and that's it. Yeah, I'm not gonna care if they listen or not, because these are the facts and this is the message that I have for the world. But with this, it's like I have to wait for an answer. So yeah.
But wait, sorry, can I just follow up?
Yeah.
Do you think it's because you're less confident in your feeling of like romance compared to your feeling of like just like you kind of need that confirmation from the outside more when it comes to the love poems than to the like with the justice poems you just know like this is the truth, this is what you know, and but with this maybe you haven't got to that space yet, like
I think there's the hesitancy of knowing that,
because if you know then you don't need that confirmation, right? You can just just curious.
Okay, third poem. All right. Hat trick, twas impro. Apologies for the bilingualness. Blame my upbringing. Took me a while. Anyways, this poem is called Talk About You and You Won't Even Know. So that's the name of the poem. Okay. I shouldn't be doing this. I really shouldn't be doing this. But I am. I might just buck up the courage to release this. Tell her that she's the star of this notebook from Tiger. She's a celebrity. She's got bare man chasing her like her. Tell her finish off my bars. That's my love language. The power of what I can do with words in the English language. Powerful enough to secure a first date with her. Acting like I can't do channel 104 10 p.m. with her. Keep doubting me like you doubt my poetry. Imagine the plot twist if she likes me. Honestly, she's just a pretty lady, but she's never been to. Tell her I'll show her the real London. Come see the council blocks, estates I used to walk past. Not the big fancy offices and buildings the celebrities always walk past. Anyways, I don't know her, hence why I want the first date. Anyways, everyone knows I'm just joking. I'm not desperate like them tigers that went uni in Leicester. I'm not shooting my shot with her, but if I did, best believe I'll pull up clutch like that 10 did in Leicester. Everyone knows that she's hot, like it really burns. Let me not hold back. Let me go on the attack. Pure heart, clever mind, that's why I'm clicking my fingers. She really burns every mic, but she's still colder than most of these rappers. makes no sense, like the calls I get about people's boilers. I looked at pictures of her and I looked again. Type of lady I would like to have type of lady I would want to have as my girlfriend. I know she might like this rhythm, but it doesn't mean she'll be my wifey. I want to hear about her life around those times. Like, is that when poetry entered your life? Like, did you ever think you'll be with an African poet in your life? You know what, let me reel it.
And then what was it about this person that made you want to write this piece?
I'm the type of person I like writing about people who will never know about me. Like I like doing that. So I came across this person on social media. She was like some rapper from America. She was proper hard. She done like a song with maybe JT or one of them. You know, them new trendy like rappers or whatever. And I saw like she was like half a poet, half a rapper, which kind of led me down the line of thinking, imagine if I potentially had a chance with someone who's very intelligent as well as very cool and very, you know, trendy and whatever. So yeah, I mean, how many followers does she? She probably has 1.1 or 1.2 million followers, but it doesn't matter, because at the end of the day, you can talk about a crush, you can talk about whoever you like, but it doesn't mean it's gonna go anywhere, and you can still stick true to who you are. You can still say, okay, I might like you, but this is what I really want to show you. This is who I really am, and stuff like that. So
I just want to say that I just feel like you have such wit in your poetry, and I really love it. Like, I really enjoy your writing. Like, it's like you have bars in there that it's like if you know kind of thing, with your references. And yeah, I like your wordplay. I enjoy it. It's really cool. Thank you for sharing.
thank you for that compliment. Yeah, and if you know, you know. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, just continuing with the very personalized, subconscious sort of style of poetry. Channel 4, 10 p.m. Watershed, yeah?
Oh no, first dates. First dates, not Watershed. First dates.
It's still after 9, but yeah, okay, I get you.
Yeah, true. Sometimes they like have like successful first dates. Sometimes they.
No, it's my favourite show. It's one of my favourite shows
Yeah,
on
yeah,
Channel 4.
Yeah.
I love first dates.
Yeah. You never watch first dates.
First date. When it goes well, I'm like melting on myself.
Oh wow.
Bear in mind, only the UK version is appreciated, anyways. But yeah,
That's true. Yeah.
what is it about this lady that you? I know this is gonna seem very awkward, but like, on a personal level, obviously she inspired you enough to do this poem. But like, and I know this might have been mentioned earlier, but what is it that essentially makes you gravitate towards her, not just as a poet, as a rapper, as a human being?
Well, yeah. I mean, what made me gravitate towards her was that the fact that she just seemed to, by her online persona, let's just say, by her online persona, she just seemed to keep it real and keep it, you know, down to earth in the majority of what she was doing. Like, she didn't want to sell out for no reason. She didn't want to do this and do that and always hop on the TikTok challenge and this and that and whatever. So that kind of humbleness and that down to earthness that I saw in her persona, her interaction just online, it made me think, okay, there's some contenders out there. There's some, you know, like it's there's some candidates, and it's not just because I've been through a kind of stage where I'm thinking maybe this isn't for me. It's always refreshing to see people and girls like her who are just like, who are clued on in the mind and they know things.
What do you mean? What isn't for you? When you said this is not for me.
Just some things just in the past just are not, just haven't been for me necessarily. Like, yeah, it's just like I felt like relationships and just things just haven't been for me. And like when I split up with my ex, I went through a tough time where obviously I was questioning my kind of ability to be normalized, to be normal enough to enter into a relationship and to kind of sustain a relationship, or being too open or things like that. So I felt like it wasn't for me, but then you come across people who are like-minded, so to speak. So when you come across people who are like-minded, it makes you think, okay, let me give it a try. Let me try to enter back. Let me try to explore what the world has to bring me. Because, yeah, but you don't want to get too carried away with it. I mean, celebrities are just celebrities, so.
Yeah, but I have the feeling that this person is just kind of a representation of other girls, maybe. And
Yeah, maybe the type and maybe the character traits that I would want in a future partner. So maybe somebody who is, you know, loving, who is down to earth, who cares about the world and society like how I care about it. So yeah, those are traits that maybe I would like to explore in the future.
You kind of answered the question I wanted to ask you, and it's kind of personal, but so you're a young man, and I can tell, like, through the poetry you've done this evening, it's like really humbling, and I'm glad to see that there are young men like you out there. Because I just want to say, usually we see young men not being so deep about their approach with women, and so it's refreshing to see this energy, and as you're talking about it, I feel like I want to know.
Yeah, I feel like being open and being romantic and expressing your feelings towards a woman, it's something that I try to do as much as possible. Whether it's been with like my ex or other elements, or just on a platonic level, like appreciating women, whether it's my mum, my sister, or other things. I feel like it's important to do that, because like women, they've carried us and done so many things, and they're usually the first ones to show up for men. So it should be vice versa. So, and in terms of me and my romantic life, I mean, I'm a socially awkward person. However, I do see within my neurodiversity a chance to, you know, express that and continue to be open and romantic towards women. And wherever that leads me, wherever it leads me. But yeah, that's how it is mainly. Yeah.
I think we can tell you got lots of values, and that's something you're gonna keep. So respect, man.
Yeah, no, that comes from my parents, definitely.
I just want to say thank you, because you sharing that poem, actually, I know you said you're socially awkward and the new neurodivergent side of you, but you're actually able to do what a lot of people can't do, men or women. And that's articulate what you would like and what you wouldn't like, and what you'd like to follow through with and what you'd like to explore.
Yeah.
You know, and that's really humbling to hear in a poet or in any human. But I think would you feel like you've allowed poetry to give you the opportunity to express that a lot more clearly than you would do if you were with someone because you said, and I'm just going on what you said about being socially awkward, poetry's allowed you to have that space where you can allow the creativity to allow you to speak on your own with honesty.
Yeah, well, yeah, definitely, you know, poetry has allowed me to express maybe a bit more easier it's allowed me to express a bit more easier in terms of how I feel about people, how I want to feel about people, how I care about people. So yeah, poetry's allowed me to do that better than an average conversation where, you know, your neurodiversity, your Asperger's, your autism, I got diagnosed when I was like 5.5 in it, but I didn't talk much about it because It's not a hindrance in my view. So, but yeah, it's a format that allows me to, just express it more. And even if it's a bit coded, even if I'm talking about, Tigers and Leicester Tigers and nobody clocks it's a rugby reference, it still allows me to be secure and free in that sense. Whereas in an average conversation, sometimes you do get socially awkward and stuff. Not even that, you stutter, you do all types of stuff. Like, I'm not even high functioning, so yeah.
I wanted to this is kind of what happened like last year, like when I got two poets that kind of didn't know each other, and then there was like a confluence, so I like the word confluence. So obviously Ayah did a piece about poet, and then you kind of did rapper poet. So there's questions for both. There's questions for both of you. In regards to like romance or just relationships, would you date another poet? And are you open to that, or would you just date another creative in general?
You can go first. You can go first. I am so sorry to put the pressure on you, but still.
I'm not sure.
I'm just gonna zoom in.
I think, maybe. I think I would date someone who likes poetry, I would say, because poetry means so much to me. It's a part of who I am, so I need to know the person that I'm with has an interest in that, because I'm going to be talking about it a lot. If I write a poem, I'm going to want to share it. If at least have that, like that fire, that interest that for poetry, even if they're not necessarily a poet themselves. I don't know if that's like an answer or not, but it has to be someone that loves poetry, whether they're a poet or not.
That's fine. I appreciate your answer. Thank you.
So your question, just to clarify, was basically like,
would you date a poet?
Would I date a poet?
Yeah, or creative.
Or a creative, potentially. I mean, like, I could do. I'm open to that. There's like-minded. When you're a poet and you're creative, you're naturally drawn to other creative people. So obviously, I would be open to that, like dating other creative people and whatever. But it's just we have to wait and see how that goes. We have to. Yeah, it might be explosive. It might end up like, I don't know.
In the poetry.
Yeah, I might do a poem about her when we split up or whatever.
I always feel like if two poets go out, they're always gonna put each other in a poem, and it depending on how it went, you get lit up in that poem. And I'm just like, do you really want that smoke?
It's mad. It's mad.
I have a question over that. So we talk about passion and fire a lot, and we've talked about it but that's between people, regardless, right? If there's chemistry, there's chemistry. So if there's chemistry, there's chemistry. So is it really just about the page or the poet or the artist? Because I've heard a lot of people say, if you're an artist, don't date an artist. And I'm like, or don't date a poet if you're a poet. And I'm like,
there's
why are you saying
this, but
no, really. Someone like
I've heard that.
Is that a thing?
It's a saying. I know I've heard that saying, like,
It's Taylor Swift's fault.
It's not.
It's Taylor Swift's fault.
What did she say?
Everything.
I've heard that expression. Like, other people have said it, but I've always felt like, for me, like I feel like because I love poetry so much. Like I think that it's so unfair that we would write so. Like when we write about someone, we immortalize them. They're like forever gonna be preserved in our words throughout time, and the same with artists as well. Like if they paint you, and I always feel like if I ever met someone, it's kind of almost unfair that the way I would like paint someone in this grandiose way, but they may not be able to reflect that back. So I kind of like creative people because I would love to be immortalized in the way that they would immortalize me. I would immortalize them.
Not rebuttal, but I was going to say, respond to what you were saying about the way artists paint each other. And like one of the things that's kind of engrossing me right now is like, and the thing that I do encourage more than anything is like people to spill a day in truth into existence. But I suppose this is a part for me where it's like I don't want to get to the point of defaming people anymore, or get into the sense of pettiness, and like where I'm just kind of venturing toward this path of like not trying to bleed on others. I'm not trying to patronize or be like in this sort of upper ethos of like saying like don't cuss anybody or stuff like that. But I just don't like how like people implore, especially on TikTok, being able to talk badly about their ex to the point where it's like oh, I want to know more. It's like I want to be engrossed in like someone else's like thing, but we don't know the full course of the story, because as a painter you tend to paint it from your perspective, and sometimes that perspective gets lodged into the world to the point where it's like that what you paint out there is truth, and it's nothing but the truth, and it's the only truth because you heard it from one story. But that other person who may not be a creative as you're dating them, but they were interested in the first place, they're going to be mired by many, many people who don't even know like who that person is, to say that they're going to be villainized because of what the other person said about them. And of course, you're going to bring out the worst things about the person, isn't it? But one thing that I do implore more than anything is like those artists who have the maturity to say, like, I think this is why people like Adele, because there's so much maturity in like the extent of her lyricism and everything like that. And having an old album that encompasses like how to get out of a relationship whilst being able to mediate the relationship in the first place. Because me personally, I would like nothing but to wish the person the best. But then how many people are going to have the willingness to really and truly do that? And that's the sort of thing that I want to sort of encapsulate in terms of like creatively speaking about who you love and the truth and all that sort of thing. Just saying it in the most mature and endearing way that you can, I guess. But that's just me.
No, I like that.
Definitely.
I don't know if I'm past now, if I have something to add. I like this conversation. I think when two artists come together, I feel like it can be like explosive. So I feel like it's almost like there's so much energy, and I feel like that can almost really bounce off of each other, or it can like explode, like it's too much. So I think it's interesting exploring creativity in relationships in that aspect. And it's kind of like I see it as, you know, like with not everybody is like, even I'm not the massive person with astrology, but like being the same, dating someone that's the same sign as you, it can be like you're too similar. Like there needs to almost be some contrast. So I think, yeah, it's interesting, and everyone's an individual as well. But yeah, it's interesting. I have a poem called The Canvas, and I feel like, not now, but one day. I think you may have heard it. I think possibly. I don't know. But anyway, that I feel like it's an old poem. I'm in a relationship now, but it's an old poem, and it's about somebody before that I feel like I almost idolized, and it's like, it was like being in that artistic bag of, wow, like there's this person, and being an artist, it's like everything, I feel things very deeply and very, like everything is very big and magnified, and it's like, this is just a person. People are amazing, but sometimes I think if you have that on both ends, sometimes it might be hard to strip away from the artistry of both of you and be able to see each other at the kind of human level as well, away from that. So yeah, just some of my thoughts around that. Yeah, thank you.
So as was said, I think Anna said it, that, you know, you are drawn to people that have some similarities to you, you know, that from values to other stuff. And yes, there's the saying that opposites attract. And the fact is that you do need contrast. I think also that if we're talking about being with creatives, well, what is creativity? Because creativity is vast, yeah? People in this room may use poetry as their main vehicle of creativity, but there are people in the world of business, tech, using creativity. There are mothers, fathers using creative ways to bring up their children. So creativity is not just a traditionally accepted discipline, do you know what I mean, and stuff. And I think that also, that as people, we have our different personality types. So in this room, there will be introverts, extroverts. You may be poets that get on a stage, but how you get your energy might be different because you're an introvert or an extrovert. So actually within, if I put it this way, the hat that we wear as poets or artists, I am a person who has a certain personality type. So my personality type and how I do my poetry, how I am in a relationship, how I am in friendships is going to impact that. So it's not just the fact that I am an artist. So if I got together with another poet, that it would be our artistry that might be explosive. It might be because I have a certain personality type. I'm an INFP apparently, and stuff like that. And they are something else, you know what I mean? So how we are relating to one another, you know what I mean? That part of me, that part of my tapestry, the creativity, and even within the creativity, the fact that I'm a poet, I'm a writer, these are all parts of the tapestry that as a person with maturity and with personality and understanding each other's love languages and all of that kind of stuff is, I think, what will help us in those relationships. Do you know what I mean? So I'm not saying that it's not great to maybe want someone that is in the same line as you because, you know what I mean, that can be very helpful, you know what I mean, especially if you're in a poet freelance life. Or what I would like to say is that people need to at least be able to appreciate that kind of lifestyle. Do you know what I mean? And that actually, because it's you, they want to see your painting. They want to listen to your song. They might not be coming with you to a whole poetry night where there's 30 poets, because honestly, I don't always want to be at a poetry night where there's 30 poets because I haven't got all that energy for that. But I appreciate it because it's you. And they will sit and they will listen to it because it's you. Do you know what I mean? And stuff like that. So I think that all those things are in the mix of all of that, you know? That was it.
Yeah, that's true.
So, did you guys want to say something just at the end of night? Do you like say any thank yous or plug yourself?
Thank you. No, honestly, thank you for hosting this, for organizing it, and thank you, Arnaud, for the space as well. And because I haven't met you before or I've seen you perform anywhere, so it was good to hear your poetry and your thought process behind it.
Nah, vice versa. I feel like I'm very nourished and my soul is very, very filled by the poetry and the conversation and everything that we've had in this beautiful home and everything like that. So I just feel very nourished, and I feel like your poetry was definitely the type of poetry that, you know, I want to hear and that people want to hear. And we all feel inspired. We're all loving the poetry. We're all gonna go home being better people and everything. So that's what it's about.
So I just want to say thank you to Arnaud for giving us this space, and his mum, Arnaud's mum, Ayah, for just being an amazing human. Arnaud being an amazing human, and hopefully you guys, if you guys liked Scratch That, I do want to put more of these on, but it's just hard finding venues that are for free. And man, I hope you guys enjoyed tonight. Thank you so much.
Yes.
Thank you.